The British conquest of India was not a smooth march of easy victories. There were moments when the East India Company's rule was shaken and the company was nearly thrown off the balance. Of all the states that offered resistance to the British in India, one name stands out for its innovation, energy and relentless resistance: Mysore. Hello everyone, I am Bharat and I welcome you all to the 6th episode of the Love of History series. In today's episode, we explore one of the most dramatic rivalries of the early modern India, the Anglo-Mysore Wars fought between the British East India Company and the rising state of Mysore led by two dynamic leaders, Haidar Ali and Tipu Sultan. Now, this is not just a story of four wars. It is the story of a rising Indian power refusing to bow before the dictates of an expanding colonial power. Before we enter the battlefield, let us understand the power that dared to challenge the company. Take a look at the map of South India. In the heart of the Deccan Plateau stood the kingdom of Mysore. Originally, it was ruled by the Vodiyar dynasty, but by the middle of 18th century, the Vodiyar kings had become largely ceremonial. The real power had passed on to the hands of a remarkable soldier statesman, Haidar Ali. Now, Haidar Ali's rise itself is extraordinary. He was not born into a royal family. It was through sheer military talent, administrative ability and political competence that he rose. Now that tells us something very important. Mysore's rise was not accidental. It was built on competence. Under Haidar Ali, Mysore expanded rapidly. Its frontier stretched towards River Krishna in the north and to the Malabar coast in the southwest. Now this expansion brought Mysore in conflict with the Nizam of Hyderabad, the Marathas as well as the British East India Company. The British were also concerned about the friendship of Mysore with the French, who were their global enemies. So by the end of 1760s, the conflict was becoming inevitable. Now pause and think. Why the rise of Mysore was such a problem for the company? Mysore was politically independent, militarily strong, economically ambitious, it was strategically located and it was open to cooperation with the French. Now, the company could tolerate a lot of things but not a rival state with ambition. In fact, Mysore was one of the few states that was capable of checking the company expansion in the south. The aggressive company state, confident after its recent victories in Bengal, now decided on war. The first war began when the British joined hands with the Marathas and the Nizam of Hyderabad, all against Haidar Ali. The company believed Mysore could be cornered through alliances, but Haidar Ali was no ordinary opponent. Through quick movement, shifting tactics and political maneuver, he turned the tables. And then came a stunning moment. Haidar Ali advanced all the way towards Madras, the principal British settlement in South India. Imagine the panic in British circles. We planned to invade Mysore. How is Mysore now at our gates? The British were forced to negotiate on Haidar's terms. The war ended with the Treaty of Madras in 1769. Its terms included mutual restoration of conquests, exchange of prisoners, promise of mutual assistance in future. This treaty signaled something very important. The company had been compelled to treat Mysore as an equal power, and that was no small matter. However, the treaty did not settle the underlying rivalry, it merely postponed it until the resumption of hostilities a decade later in the Second Anglo-Mysore War. Now the second war was larger, fiercer and much more humiliating for the British. Its roots lay partly in the British betrayal. Under the Treaty of Madras, the company had promised to assist Haidar Ali if attacked, but when the Marathas invaded Mysore in 1771, the British did nothing. Haidar remembered. Then came another trigger. In 1779, the British captured Mahe, a French settlement on the Malabar coast that was under Mysore's protection. This was a direct challenge. At the same time, the British were already at war against Marathas since 1775, that is the First Anglo-Maratha War. So at this time, a rare anti-British Indian coalition emerged: the Marathas, the Nizam of Hyderabad and the state of Mysore. Internationally, the British during this time were dealing with the American Revolution that would eventually lead to the independence of the United States of America from the British Empire. Further, as a result of the French support to the American War of Independence, the British were also fighting against the French globally. This second factor had an implication for India as well. In what way? Because the French were going aggressive against the British globally, they actively cooperated with Haidar Ali and his son Tipu against the British. The British in India had all the reasons to watch every trade deal that Mysore was having with French with a degree of suspicion. Haidar Ali invaded the British-controlled Carnatic region. Then came one of the most famous battles of the period, Battle of Pollilur in 1780. The British army suffered a crushing defeat. In fact, it was one of the worst defeats the British had faced in India till then. Mysorean forces used advanced iron-cased rockets, creating chaos among British ranks. Yes, you heard it right, rockets. Long before modern warfare, Mysore had already experimented with battlefield rocketry. Haidar advanced close to Madras. The British prestige was badly shaken, but the company slowly recovered. They separated Mysore from its allies by signing the Treaty of Salbai in 1782 with the Marathas. And then came a major turning point. Haidar Ali died in 1782. Leadership passed on to his son Tipu Sultan. Tipu carried on the war energetically. The conflict finally came to an end with the Treaty of Mangalore in 1784. The terms of the treaty included the mutual return of the conquered territories and the exchange of prisoners. The Second Anglo-Mysore War came to an end in 1784 with the signing of Treaty of Mangalore. Now let us pause here for a moment and understand what had just happened. The mighty British East India Company, which had already begun dreaming of a territorial empire in India, had been forced to sit across the table and negotiate with Tipu Sultan on terms of equality. That was no ordinary diplomatic moment. That meant in South there still existed a power that would not bend easily. The British had expected quick victory. Instead, they encountered resistance. The British had expected quick expansion. Instead, they found the walls of Mysore standing tall and proud. But history rarely stands still. Even as this treaty was signed, mistrust remained alive. The British had not forgotten Pollilur. They had not forgotten humiliation, and they had certainly not abandoned ambition. On the other side, Tipu Sultan was not a ruler content with survival. He was energetic, reform-minded, militarily alert, and fully aware that another clash with the company was only a matter of time. So when peace had returned on paper, the storm had merely paused. And what was coming would be bigger, because the next phase would bring new British leadership, global French connections, territorial losses, hostage princes, and finally the dramatic fall of Seringapatam. That gripping story will be covered in the next episode. Here we conclude our episode on the first two Anglo-Mysore wars. Till then, I want you to remember this line. Empires often celebrate victories, but history also remembers those who made empires struggle for every inch of territory. So that's it. I'll see you in the next episode.